Welcome, settle in, and let your breathing fall into a soft and steady pattern as you imagine yourself on a quiet watch in a desert of the future, where the air tastes of fine dust, where drip lines hum in a low whisper, and where the winds do not hurry but move with the patience of stones. A place where every sound is gentle, every motion unhurried, and every thought can drift in its own time, like a small dune finding its shape at the edge of starlight. If this calm space feels good, you can like this video and subscribe. And if you want a slow parade of gentle knowledge to accompany your rest, the playlist in the description is there to keep you company while you drift. What city, country are you watching from right now? You find yourself standing at the boundary between sand and cultivation, a thin line where technology meets the quiet insistence of the landscape. Under your feet, the ground is a firm crust, lightly pebbled with grains that have settled after a rare breeze earlier in the day. The scent is faintly mineral, like sun-warmed pottery after evening cool returns. Overhead, the sky is a deep velvet field, and the stars are steady and unblinking, as though the universe has decided to move in slow motion just to match the pace of this place. The gentle rhythm continues, and you feel the calm become a low tide inside your chest, easy and unforced. In this desert of the future, agriculture has learned to be almost as quiet as the land itself. It does not fight the dryness, and it does not rush. It listens. Drip irrigation lines curve along the soil like dark threads of a patient tapestry, each emitter a small heartbeat, releasing water in measured tiny pulses. The water arrives with the deliberation of a clock, not a torrent, but a drop at a time. Each drop finds soil and soaks in, slipping between grains until it finds a resting place in the root zone where it lingers. The plants learn to drink with equal patience, and their leaves barely move, shifting only when a gentle, obliging breeze passes by. If you kneel, you can trace the shape of the wetting pattern under each emitter, a quiet bulb of moisture shaped by gravity and capillary forces. It is almost symmetrical in this sandy loam, but a little wider than deep, because the pores here pull water sideways as well as downward. You brush the surface and the top is dry, but underneath it cools your skin. This is the quiet miracle of drip irrigation, that the surface can seem unchanged, dusty and placid, while just below, a soft reservoir grows and contracts throughout the day. The gentle rhythm continues, measured in drops per hour, in millimeters of potential evapotranspiration, in the sigh of leaves that are content rather than thirsty. There are sensors, but even the sensors are modest. Thin rods in the soil measure the tension with which the earth holds its water, telling the system when to open and when to rest. The data they create is simple, a curve that rises and falls like a breath, without spikes, without alarm. The valves open with a low click and a tiny shiver moves down the line, like a branch remembering a breeze, then silence again. It is all arranged to avoid hurry, because hurry would be waste, and waste would be noise. The gentle rhythm continues, reinforced by algorithms that are less like commands and more like listening, always listening to the soil and the plants. Further away, dunes wait in their ancient forms, but even the dunes are not entirely the same as they once were. Micro windbreaks, light as veils, break the air into wide, calm ribbons. The winds still cross the land, but they have been taught to step softly. The threshold at which grains begin to dance is not met tonight. Saltation, the lively bounce of sand grains, is an idea more than an action at this hour. A few grains might creep along the surface, a slow shuffle forward, but most rest, and the air remains almost clear. You can see that the dust in this future desert is not an enemy, but a companion with boundaries, a material that can be guided by kindness rather than forced by carelessness. The science of dust is gentle when described in this tone. Dust is a spectrum of sizes, from grains that pack softly into a crust, to particles so fine that they remain suspended long after a breeze passes. In daylight, those fine particles scatter light and make the sky pale. At night, they settle and they coat the panels of solar arrays with a film like the faintest frost. Maintenance crews are in no hurry because the winds are in no hurry. Cleaning happens with quiet brushes that tickle the surfaces under starlight, and with electrostatic fields that persuade dust to step aside, a coaxing rather than a fight. The gentle rhythm continues, each panel slowly returning to a clear sheen, each fibre of the brush gliding, each movement a breath. Between the rows of panels, small shrubs sit under the faint shade, sharing the land with machines. This is agrivoltaics, where the shade that panels provide is not a barrier but a shelter. The shade moderates the soil temperature, and evaporation, the invisible elevator of water from soil to air, goes down and rests. A little less heat, a little less haste, and the plants do well. In the morning, when sunlight finds the edges, photosynthesis begins, not with a burst, but with a calm reaching out. Photons landing like soft footsteps on leaf surfaces. The stomata open, but not all the way, just enough. The gentle rhythm continues, and you can almost hear the chemistry hum in its quiet way. Beyond the panels, there are plots planted with saltbush and other hardy species that can sip water with discipline. Their grey-green leaves reflect excess light, and their roots wander down and sideways, finding the wet bulbs beneath the emitters. The soil between the plants remains mostly dry, and that is deliberate. Dry soil between wet islands is a strategy that keeps weeds from sprinting and keeps water from wandering. The pattern is elegant, a mosaic of life and rest. The wet areas feed the roots. The dry corridors hold the dust down, giving it a reason to stay settled. The gentle rhythm continues, a geometry laid out by people who learned from the desert rather than trying to silence it. At the edge of the fields, a line of small stones forms a border, and between those stones, a thin filament runs, almost invisible. This is a dew collector, a line that is cooler than the air, a slender scaffold on which tiny droplets gather at dawn and then slide into a reservoir the size of a cup. The collection is small but faithful. In the cool hour before sunrise, the sky pours a little water down the ladder of temperature, and the collector receives it without words. Nearby, larger surfaces do the same. Panels that look like the wings of sleeping birds, angled to cool into the night and invite condensation. The water they harvest is pure, softened by the sky, a nightly gift that joins the measured trickle of the drip lines. The gentle rhythm continues, partly from below, partly from above. You start to walk along a service path that is not much wider than your shoulders. The gravel crunch is soft and regular, almost the same sound as light rain in a distant memory. A maintenance drone glides past at a walking pace, its rotors wrapped in housings that hush their breath. It carries filters for the irrigation lines and fine mesh for emitters. Clogging in drip irrigation is a problem known for decades, and the solution in this future is not severe or complex. It is routine. Filters catch the bigger pieces, dosing points at a mild, harmless acid when needed to keep minerals from settling, and lines flush at set intervals with a whisper of slightly faster flow. The gentle rhythm continues, and even the water's chemistry abides by a slow dance, with salts guided outward and downward before they can gather and crust. In a corner of the field, a small board lists the day's observations in quiet numbers. Water applied, in litres per plant per day, a number so small it feels like a note rather than a command. Soil tension, in centibars, a steady pulse. Solar input, in kilowatt hours per square metre, slipping down as night settles. Evapotranspiration forecast for tomorrow, in simple digits. These numbers feel gentle because they are not demands. They are comfort measures, letting the caretakers of this system breathe easily and make minor adjustments. The gentle rhythm continues, and the future desert shows that care can be as light as dust itself if it is steady. At night, the atmosphere layers itself like folded cloth. Close to the ground, a shallow blanket of cool air forms, heavier than the air above, and it stays put if the winds remain unhurried. This inversion holds scents low and keeps sound near the earth. You can hear a drip line a few rows away, a string of soft ticks, like a metronome set to a bedtime tempo. You can smell the faint sweetness of a desert herb just brushed by the nighttime dampness. You can feel the slow release of heat from rocks that absorb the day's light, giving it back in a gentle, even exhale. The gentle rhythm continues as the boundary layer of air wraps around the land. Somewhere in the distance, a tower stands over a desalination plant that hums softly. Its story is also about patience. Water arrives from an ocean or a brackish aquifer, passes through membranes that let water through and whisper no to salt, and emerges as a future for fields and people. The energy that runs the plant comes from the panels and the wind turbines placed where the breezes are modest but faithful. The brine, which carries the salts away, is handled carefully, diluted, and spread to areas where nature can absorb the gift slowly. No drama, no flood, just a steady stream of usefulness. The gentle rhythm continues, a movement from salt to fresh, from fresh to plant, from plant to life. You pause near a stand of date palms, their trunks with a braided texture like the memory of many hands. The skirts of fronds sough, and the sound is soft parchment. Underneath the palms, the air is a little moister. Mulch rests there, a thin mat of husks and fibres, keeping the soil from seeing too much sun, keeping each drop of irrigation water company for a few moments longer. Mulch is a simple idea with a powerful quietness. What is covered evaporates more slowly. What is shaded keeps its time. Microbes under the mulch move at their own pace, turning plant pieces into finer crumbs, adding to the soil's capacity to hold moisture like a sponge that never overfills. The gentle rhythm continues, life and decay dancing the same steps they have known for ages. In the middle distance, where the soil looks more open, the message changes slightly. There, hardy grains grow under netting that cuts the wind into silk. The nets are a soft grey, and they change the light without blunting it. The plants grow short and strong, not tall and fragile. Drip lines feed them from below, and the soil is prepped with a small proportion of clay and organic matter to improve the way it holds water. The grain heads nod, and their motion is tiny, just enough to show the air's presence. Crop choice here is a study in practicality and poetry. The varieties chosen do not demand more than the place can provide. The gentle rhythm continues, as if the land itself were a partner in the selection. Walking past sleeker, newer structures, you come to a row of future greenhouses that do not shine because their covers are matte and diffuse. Diffuse light enters and spreads evenly, losing the hard edges of glare. The temperature is moderated by a combination of cool nights and small, efficient heat exchangers powered by the sun that set aside energy during the day and whisper it back at night. Inside, humidity is not allowed to spike because that would encourage disease, but it is also not scoured away because dryness would stress the leaves. Air moves slowly, guided by ducts that use the lightest of pressure differences. The gentle rhythm continues, each plant in the greenhouse another instance of calm intention. The living creatures here remain part of the quiet scene. A gerbil hops without hurry, pausing to listen. A beetle with a polished shell travels in a line that looks straight but is guided by delicate cues. A tiny gradient in the air, a faint scent. A gecko rests under a line, where a small insect buffet briefly appears at dusk, and then it goes back to the crevice it calls home. Predators are present, But the night has asked everything to slow down, and even the hunt is a measured, respectful step. The gentle rhythm continues, not a contest, but an equilibrium. As you approach the midpoint of this long, gentle watch, pause with me and notice how your body has softened into the scene, how your breath has found a slow pattern that suits you, and how your thoughts can float like gliding birds over a calm sea. How sleepy are you on a scale of 1 to 10? The path carries you past a line of reservoirs with surfaces like polished stone. The water is quiet, held behind berms that are planted with deep-rooted grasses. These berms resist erosion as much with their structure as with patience. The grasses are narrow and flexible, bending rather than breaking, and their roots stitch the soil together in a loose fabric that resists the occasional mood of the wind. On the water, dust rests and becomes part of a film that is carefully skimmed at slow intervals. The skimmers do not rush. They move like the hands of a clock, constant and untroubled. The gentle rhythm continues, even where maintenance meets nature. There is a story written in the arrangement of the emitters themselves. Many are pressure compensating, which means they deliver the same slow drip, even when the land slopes a little, or when the reservoir is fuller or lower. The difference between too much and too little is a narrow lane in deserts, and these small devices keep the flow in that lane. Inside each emitter, a path winds, and that winding path is a teacher of patience. The water must trace a series of gentle turns that slow it, and in the slowing, it becomes precise. The gentle rhythm continues, and the pattern of water in time is as important as the amount. Soil chemistry under drip irrigation creates quiet patterns you can see when someone slices a cross-section at the end of a season. Where the wet bulbs stop, salts accumulate at the edges, driven by evaporation to the outer rim where the moisture thins. The center remains sweet and kind to roots. The ring gathers minerals that the next flush will persuade to move downward and away. It is a choreography of ions and moisture, a delicate balance that becomes second nature with practice. You can imagine a caretaker sliding a small blade into the soil and revealing this ring, nodding, then closing the earth again. The gentle rhythm continues, and the rules are known and honored. On the edges of the cultivated area, a different tactic holds the desert skin in place. There are low fences, not barriers, but invitations for the wind to deposit its load. These fences are porous, a humble proportion, open and closed, and that proportion is the secret. Too solid, and the wind would scour around them, too open, and nothing would change. With the correct openness, the air surrenders a little of what it carries and lays it down softly. Over time, the land reshapes to a new equilibrium, with hummocks that cradle seedlings and protect them from exposure. The gentle rhythm continues, and the land learns a new lesson without force. The nights here are cool because the desert gives its heat away efficiently. With little moisture in the air, infrared radiation escapes into space, and the surface cools fast once the sun has gone. That is why the dew collectors work. and it is why dawn feels fresh even after a hot day. Radiative cooling is a constant gift, and here it is a tool as well as a comfort. Some surfaces are designed to enhance this effect, sending heat outward with more eagerness so that they can gather water from the air or simply make a space more pleasant for sleeping or for resting. The gentle rhythm continues, energy arriving during the day and leaving at night, a balance that people have learned to surf with quiet skill. In a pocket of the site, a small research plot lives its own careful life. Here, scientists test emitter spacings and flow rates so low that the numbers look unlikely. 1/4 litre per hour is an idea often dismissed, yet in soils that hold on to water well, even that whisper of flow sustains life. They also test subsurface drip, where the lines are buried a few inches underground, invisible to the eye, so that there is no surface evaporation at all. The tests run for a season, for a year, for several years. The results come in slowly and with few surprises. The gentle rhythm continues, and the data confirm the choices that the land itself already suggested. Above, the stars give a sense of time that is longer than any project. The constellations slide in their stately way, and a faint band of the Milky Way arches like a quiet river. In that river are grains too, dust older than our imagination, each particle a fragment of something that once was a star and is now a whisper of light. The comparison feels appropriate. Dust here and dust there, gentle movement here and gentle movement there, time passing without hurry in both scales. The gentle rhythm continues, and you feel part of a story that stretches beyond practicalities without ever abandoning them. In daylight, this place looks different, but it sounds the same. The drip lines keep their tempo. The breeze continues to trace the surface of leaves and panels with a hand that never presses. The light has a color that suggests purity, but also an edge. It is filtered a little by the air's fine load, a chalkiness that softens shadows. The plants hold their leaves in angles that balance hunger and caution. There is photosynthesis, but no rush to push more than the water can sustain. The people who visit the fields carry hats and quiet voices. They talk in tones that, even when excited, remain grounded in the calm of their surroundings. The gentle rhythm continues, a workplace that feels like a meditative practice. The infrastructure that supports the irrigation is deliberately simple where it can be. Piping runs in the open so that failures are visible as small glistens rather than hidden leaks. Valves have manual overrides because redundancy can be a kind of calm. Power systems have buffers enough to allow long periods without sun or wind if the weather decides to be moody for a time, which it sometimes does, even here. Storage is not a large, anxious tank, but a series of smaller, placid ones, each able to share the load. The gentle rhythm continues, robustness as a form of quiet confidence. Beyond cultivation, the desert remembers its original complexity. Biological soil crusts live in patches, tiny communities of cyanobacteria, lichens, mosses, and fungi woven together. When moist, they darken and wake, and when dry, they fade and rest. They hold the soil, fix a little nitrogen, and practice resilience with the grace of those who cannot move. Trails step around them, signs ask that wheels avoid them, and boot soles know to press the edges. The gentle rhythm continues. Fragments of living tapestry spread across the sand. If you look toward the horizon, you see towers so slender they almost disappear. They are meteorological masts, taking the pulse of wind and air. Their anemometers spin slowly and steadily because the winds themselves are in no hurry, though they never stop entirely. The logs they create will be read later to tune models that decide whether to water an hour earlier or later next week, whether to expect a little stronger afternoon breeze in the next season, whether to shift a shade screen by a few degrees. The gentle rhythm continues. Prediction as a modest counterpart to observation. You come upon a field where the plants are not for food, but for binding the ground. There are succulents, like tiny green stars and grasses, that look like delicate brushes stuck in sand. These are pioneers. Their job is to transform a bare surface into a living fabric that can receive other species later. They succeed by being unambitious, by spreading slowly, by asking for little. Their roots are networks that gather crumbs of water and soil and hold them together. The gentle rhythm continues, and in a few years, the bare ground is a quilt of low life, softening the wind's hand even more. Water quality is paid the kind of attention that is calm and constant. Electrical conductivity, a measure of salinity, is noted and recorded. pH is balanced to be friendly to both pipes and roots. The temperature of the water is tempered so that it does not shock the soil in the middle of a hot afternoon. If there is a change, such as a slow rise in salinity, the system shifts its patterns to include small leaching episodes, delivering just enough extra water to push salts beyond the root zone without washing away the precious additions to soil structure. The gentle rhythm continues, never a sudden flood, always an adjustment in a low key. At the heart of this place is a control room that is barely a room. It is an open shade with screens that glow softly even by day, showing graphs that are almost entirely smooth lines. People sit in comfortable chairs and rarely need to touch anything. The system nudges itself. A deviation is a gentle wave, not a spike. The alarms, if they occur, are not loud. They are taps on the shoulder, suggestions to check a filter or visit a line. The gentle rhythm continues, and even the oversight has learned to be restful. You can imagine sleeping here without fear of disturbance. The ground would be your mattress, warmed by the day and now cooling, and you would have a small pillow that smells of clean fabric and distant leaves. The air would touch your face like a cat rubbing its cheek against your hand. The stars would be your lamp and your curtain both, and while you drift, the drip lines would continue their whisper. The winds would continue their unhurried crossing. The senses would continue their steady note, and the plants would continue their silent exchange with the sky. The gentle rhythm continues, and you are gently carried by it. There is poetry in the way water moves through soil. A single drop falls from an emitter and meets the grains below. It spreads sideways and down, following paths between particles. The particles are rough at small scales, and water clings with surface tension that is stronger than one imagines. Capillaries made by spaces between grains move water in ways that are counterintuitive at a large scale. Upward movement when the space is narrow enough, lateral movement even without slope. Then biology enters. Roots send out fine hairs that reach into these small spaces. The drop meets the hair and loses its freedom gently, becoming part of a cell's content, dissolving in the chemistry of life. The gentle rhythm continues, and millions of such meetings occur daily, each as quiet as the last. You might remember old stories of irrigation that was not so gentle, canals that ran in the open sun, water evaporating into bright glare, salts left behind to crust the soil, fields tired and white at their edges. In this future, those stories are memories folded like old maps, kept for learning, but not for repeating. The contrast is not scolding, but instructive. The desert taught that water in the air has desires of its own, that it leaves if you give it a wide plate to run across in midday. Now the lines deliver water privately, underground or at the surface, but shaded by leaves, and the losses feel like a sigh rather than a gasp. The gentle rhythm continues, guided by humility. Farther out from the cultivated zones, the wind farms use blades that turn at lower speeds than the ones in your memory. They are larger in diameter and slower in rotation, capturing energy with a cadence that looks like a giant's breathing. Shadows move across the land just as slowly, and the sound is a low, almost inaudible woof at long intervals. These towers speak with the same patience as everything else here. Their output bumps the grid in long waves rather than jittery steps, and storage smooths it further. The gentle rhythm continues, and lights in the small settlements nearby glow with a steady, unblinking warmth. The settlements are modest. Homes are built half into the ground, using the soil's thermal mass to ease the difference between day and night. Courtyards hold patches of shade that last all day, moving subtly but never leaving. Roofs carry condensation panels that glisten in the early morning. Kitchens are quiet places with efficient appliances that do not heat their rooms unnecessarily. Air moves through vents and returns, always at a pace that matches human comfort rather than ambition. The gentle rhythm continues, and even the mechanics of daily life feel like a lullaby. Education in this place has taken the shape of walks. Students of all ages follow paths past emitters, nets and panels, and they learn by seeing and touching. They learn that a tiny hole in a line can move a whole plant's fate. They learn that a small shade cloth can change how a seed germinates. They learn by placing hands under the mulch. That coolness survives beneath apparent dryness. They learn that winds can be persuaded rather than forced. The gentle rhythm continues, and knowledge passes not as a requirement, but as an invitation. The quiet watch continues, and you find yourself growing drowsier as the facts and images drift by like slow clouds. Dust rests, water moves in tiny steps, leaves open and close with the logic of life that lives within bounds. Machines assist, but never demand center stage. People care for the system with small interventions and long periods of simply letting things be. It is a landscape of restraint that feels like abundance because it gives what it promises and does not take more than it needs. The gentle rhythm continues, and you are part of it now. As you return along the service path, you notice tracks in the fine layer that settled earlier. A fox passed here at dusk, placing its feet exactly in the previous foot's place to conserve energy and keep quiet. A snake traced a sinuous line and then turned toward a rocky pocket. Insects walked small constellations in a patch near an emitter, likely attracted by the microclimate's extra humidity. The stories these marks tell are slow and careful. The gentle rhythm continues, sand as a book of soft pages. You arrive at a small bench, a simple plank set on clean stones, and you sit. The bench is not far from a manifold where several lines gather and then diverge, and when a valve opens, you hear a small sigh as a pipe refills after its rest. Steam does not rise. Splashing does not occur. The water takes its cue from everything else here and acts like it belongs. The gentle rhythm continues, and you watch the sky's colors phase gently toward deepest blue. A caretaker passes and offers a nod, and you nod back. The exchange feels right at the volume of this place. The caretaker's work today involved walking the lines, checking filters, and recording the soil tension at 3 depths in 3 locations, then sitting for a while to listen to the tones of the irrigation itself. Some tones suggest a small restriction. Some suggest that a field is taking water a little faster than expected. The more time spent listening, the clearer the language becomes. The gentle rhythm continues, and the caretaker seems less like a controller and more like a translator between water and soil. In the near distance, an experimental plot uses biochar mixed into the soil. The char is light and full of pores, a condensed echo of wood that once grew elsewhere. It holds nutrients gently, not locking them away, but keeping them from leaching. It holds water in its pores for the roots to sip slowly. In deserts, such moderation is a gift. Over time, the soil becomes more capable, more forgiving of pauses in irrigation or small errors in timing. The gentle rhythm continues, capacity expanding without drama. There are moments here when heat rises in shimmering columns. You see them in the afternoon, tremors in the air that look like water but feel like glass. Even those shimmers are softer than elsewhere because the surfaces are covered, shaded, or textured to smooth the temperature differences that drive the shimmering. You watch one as it waves above a path, then lessens when a low cloud covers the sun. The gentle rhythm continues, even in the day's warmest hour. When rain does come, it arrives politely. The rain is rare, and when it comes, the system changes its step. Valves remain closed. The soil drinks without help, and basins around trees gather and offer the water back slowly. The rain falls on dry crusts that accept it and change, becoming dark and open to infiltration. The drops tap softly, and the smell is an old one, petrichor, the scent that rides the first contact between moisture and dry earth. The gentle rhythm continues, the rain a guest who knows the house's quiet rules. After a rain, there might be small flushes in the lines. Not an emergency, but a cleansing ritual to prepare the system for the weeks ahead. The water that runs through carries a little more energy, coaxing any particles that have thought about settling to move along and leave. Filters are cleaned, notes are made, then the normal pace returns. The gentle rhythm continues, readiness learned through repetition. It is easy, in a place like this, to find your own rhythm changing. You walk slowly because there is no reason to go fast. You speak softly because the environment suggests it. You find that ideas appear not as sudden flares, but as glows, developing over minutes and hours, like the slow building cool of evening. You find that the urge to fix everything is replaced by a desire to understand and to guide. The gentle rhythm continues, and your thoughts begin to lay down like dust settling after a breeze that decided to rest. If you could measure the wind tonight in a blossom, you would find that it presses as gently as a moth's wings. It has enough power to carry a fine particle for a short time, to move the scent of a flower a meter or two, to cool a leaf just enough that photosynthesis remains balanced. It does not topple, and it does not scour. It is the kind of wind that makes a person feel ready for sleep. The gentle rhythm continues, and the air creates an embrace rather than a push. Somewhere nearby, a small lab looks at soil samples under gentle light. The technicians do not use harsh chemicals unless needed. They use sieves to see the distribution of grain sizes. Simple tests to see how much water the soil gives up at certain tensions. Basic microscopes to look at the life in a drop of water from the rhizosphere. The findings are recorded in neat handwriting as well as on screens. The gentle rhythm continues, and science is a companion that does not disturb. The desert of the future has room for art. On a wall, a mural depicts dunes in soft gradients of color, and in those dunes, small silver threads represent the drip lines, as though the earth itself stitches water where it is needed. Sculptures made from old emitters and pipe offcuts form shapes that look like seeds and raindrops. Music played at dusk is a slow drone with gentle harmonics, tuned to the key the wind prefers. The gentle rhythm continues, and creativity wears the same soft clothing as everything else here. The topic of dust returns, because dust in deserts always returns. Dust is managed by the simple acts of cover and cohesion. Cover comes from plants, stones, and netting. Cohesion comes from moisture, even the smallest amount, and from the products of microbial life that glue grains together. When these are in place, the threshold friction velocity remains just beyond what the winds provide, and movement is minimal. If movement begins, it is noticed in time to lean a little more into cover or adjust netting. The gentle rhythm continues, and even the least stable materials can find stability when asked gently. The health of people in this environment benefits from the same slow awareness. Masks and filters are available on the rare days when dust does rise, and indoor spaces are kept softly clean with low-speed filtration that does not roar. Water is tested and treated calmly. Food grown here is fresh because transport is short. Work and rest follow the natural cycles, with long afternoons shaded and quiet. The gentle rhythm continues, and bodies thank the world by easing into it rather than resisting. Night deepens. The stars sharpen slightly as the air cools more and the boundary layer becomes more defined. Animals settle. The hum of the desalination plant lowers. The drip lines thin their flow where the soil has reached the target moisture, and in some plots they stop altogether for the night. You hear the smallest of clicks as a valve closes down the line, an almost imagined sound. The gentle rhythm continues, your breath aligned with the land's breath. In the fields of the future desert, failure is not a catastrophe, but a conversation. If a line tears, a patch appears within hours. If a valve sticks, it is coaxed to open by hand and then replaced later without fuss. If a season is drier than remembered, the plan tightens in small ways, and everyone already knows how. The gentle rhythm continues, because the system is designed to bend without breaking, to adjust without panic. You can imagine bringing a child here and pointing to a single emitter, saying that the world sometimes turns on small things done well and repeated often. The child would watch the water form, fall, and disappear, and would see days later a new leaf. The lesson would take root, as quiet as the scene. The gentle rhythm continues, and generations learn that patience is not delay, it is wisdom. Some nights, a faraway lightning flickers beyond the mountains, too distant to be threat. Just a reminder that the sky also holds suddenness. The flicker silhouettes the dunes for a heartbeat. Then darkness returns, and the local rules apply again. The gentle rhythm continues, and knowledge of extremes does not disturb the center. As your watch draws to a close, you notice how your senses have tuned themselves to the softest signals. You can tell when a line is pressurized from 50 meters away. You can hear the difference between wind in netting and wind in palm leaves. You can feel the smallest drop in temperature when a cloud steps over the moon. You can smell the whisper of damp soil under mulch compared to dry soil in the open. The gentle rhythm continues, and your own attributes become extensions of the land's instruments. You stand now, stretch without hurry, and take one last walk between the softly humming lines. Every few steps, a line crosses, and each crossing's the same. Consistency can be beautiful when it supports life. You pass a sign that explains the date of the last system flush and the schedule for the next. You pass a small nesting box where a bird sleeps with its head tucked. You pass a sensor pole where a tiny light blinks once every few seconds, showing a heartbeat as soft as a lullaby. The gentle rhythm continues, and the story feels complete without reaching for a curtain or a finale. It is time to return to where you began, at the boundary between sand and cultivation, and to look out again at the dunes that wait. They seem closer now, not in distance, but in kinship. They too are shaped by wind and time, and the minimum energy needed to move a grain. They too are patterns formed by repetition. They too sleep in their way. The gentle rhythm continues, and you sense that the future here is not loud progress, but quiet alignment with what already works. As you settle back into your own present space, perhaps your bed or your couch, you can keep a part of this desert in your chest. The air remains slow in your memory. The drip continues at a pace that your heart appreciates. The winds are still unhurried. You are safe, you are comfortable, and you can let go. If this journey helped you soften the edges of your day, you can subscribe and leave a like, and know that your calm support lets us return to these quiet places and share them again. Rest well, let the gentle rhythm continue through your sleep, and wake to a world that moves at the speed that suits you.